Hello. Okay, we're live. So if you are already here, good afternoon. If you're on Eastern US time, otherwise, good morning, good evening. That's a good question. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and we'll give our attendees maybe another 2 or 3 minutes to join before we get started. Claudio, thank you for the feedback in the chat. Appreciate it. First time on Crowdcast, I was a little nervous if the test was live or not. So thanks. Sweden, awesome. Okay.
Cool. So big up Europe.
Yeah, Europe is well represented. Roxana, good afternoon. I know you're in closer to our time zone, so. Canada. All right, we're like gradually expanding the map, which is awesome. A few from Canada, great. And while we wait to get started, just a few notes on Crowdcast. I'm assuming most of us have used it or tuned into a broadcast previously, but if you haven't, there's a few tools at the bottom of the screen, primarily the ask a question feature. So if you're, as Serj is going through Edu-Creator, or if we just kind of have a conversation and a question pops up, definitely add that to the question section, just to make sure that we can get through hopefully all of those today. And there's also a poll at the bottom with a couple questions, just getting a sense of your familiarity with Notion and where you're at in a course creation process, if you are already creating a course. So just go ahead and fill that out. And chat's just for kind of random stream of consciousness, notes, ideas, responses, etc. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Sound good, Serj? All right.
Yeah.
Cool. So thanks so much for joining us. This is our first Notion for EDU event, at least the one that I'm hosting. I'm sure there's been some previously. But my name is David Céspedes. I'm a teacher and kind of a Notion coach and just a overall Notion fanatic, ambassador, etc. And this is hopefully the first of a series of talks, interviews, and sessions around applications of Notion in teaching and course creation. So that's kind of the main theme around these, starting with today's, which I'm super excited about having Serj with us, who's made an amazing template and entire system that we're going to take a look at today, and also use that to kind of zoom out and look at the different ways that we could apply some of these strategies. So Serj, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hey guys, I'm tuning in from Berlin. My name's Serj Hunt. I'm a learning experience designer and also just a massive Notion nerd. I moved a lot of my sort of learning experience design practice across from Google Docs and Excel sheets and all that kind of stuff. Been helping people roll out curriculums and alternative pedagogical strategies for the last sort of like 6 years, and moving us all to Notion has just been a really like momentous event for me, and Edu-Creator is the kind of synthesis of all of that stuff. So super happy to walk through it with all of you guys, and also very keen to like hear a bit about your experience in course creation. I don't want us to be sort of like me just spraying a bunch of information, but I know we've got like a whole wealth of experience in this Crowdcast, so finding ways to surface all of that and maybe like have a jam on like what your best strategies and practices are for course creation.
Yeah, 100%. Like if anybody's got any kind of burning questions or things that you're working on that we can circle back to later on in the session, by all means add them. If it's a question, you can add the question section. Otherwise, just add some notes into the chat. I also didn't follow my own directions, but I'm tuning in from Miami, Florida. So there's that. So Serj, before we get into like walking through the system, how did you, like, what was the process like, you know, going from your background in learning experience design and, you know, getting into Notion, and basically the process from getting into it to, you know, creating an entire system in it?
Sure. Yeah. Where's fun to start? I think a lot changed after I came out of Tiago's Building a Second Brain course. I think that was when I was like, aha, like I need to build some kind of knowledge management system in Notion. And then that tied together with this kind of like burning pain point of, wow, every time I engage with a team, we're just like spread across different documents, trying to recover that person's like knowledge and then synthesize all of that from these different locations. Really, a light bulb went off and I was just like, this has to be done in Notion. There needs to be the kind of like the power of a personal Wikipedia. So if we have kind of like teachers who are cultivating this huge set of knowledge, and then also the kind of like firepower that Notion brings of like project management and task management, the powerful search features and stuff, then to my mind, that was like a brilliant recipe for really being able to churn out really great educational content and learning experiences. A lot of the friction I found in my practice was sort of auditing and bringing everything together. And that was just such a long process, as well as keeping teams engaged and on the same step together, instead of losing files and highlights going amiss and all this. So that was kind of the personal motivation for it. I saw it as like a huge step forwards from Google Docs and Google Drives. And then what else was kind of inspiring it? Well, I think I saw the power of being able to see Notion as kind of a place not just to teach from, but also to learn from. When I noticed that you can actually improve the quality of your teaching by being in Notion as a personal knowledge management system, that the quality and of the information that I was cultivating was becoming more refined. It was all in one place. I was linking new ideas to new thoughts. And so the quality of courses that I was producing and quality of courses that other people who I'd since helped move to Notion was also increasing. So that was another big move for why to move to Notion. And it's just beautiful, like for team collaboration. I think that was another big thing, just being able to create dashboards inside places and say, hey, this is the team that's working on this module. You can all just look at this page and all the assets are there. This is like possible, but like less fun in Google Drive and Google Docs.
Yeah, that part about the kind of organizing information and like being able to teach more effectively using Notion, that definitely resonates with me and is something that I'm trying to actively engage with other teachers that I work with on getting started. Like before creating an entire system and workflow, you know, just starting with organizing resources, and even, you know, throwing things that you reference regularly into a database and being able to tag them and filter them and, you know, start to apply like, well, this makes sense for this particular lesson or unit. Already, you know, the effects of that are clear and you know, pretty impactful. You know, at the beginning of this year is when I really started kind of using Notion as a primary space. And it really started with the knowledge management. And, you know, it's kind of like building momentum, you know, like snowballing into, well, I have all these things here. Let me just start, you know, creating lessons and using the same workflow for that as well. It's pretty fun.
Totally. Yeah, I love this kind of shared context that we have of like Notion in a more educational background. Like what I notice across all the teachers who use Notion in the classroom is they all just have this kind of different edge to them in terms of the quality of their teaching with the students they work with. And yeah, it's been beautiful to see it move into the classroom a bit more. And I'm sure we can jam on that later.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, before we get into the kind of walkthrough, what is the process been like after launching Edu-Creator? Like, how long did it take to create? Like, what was the release? What did that look like, and kind of what went into that process, and like where is it at currently?
Sure. Yeah, I guess it's years of kind of building out the systems in Excel sheets and all that. But the actual build, and I think I want to speak to this a bit more, is the actual build time only took about 3 weeks to turn it into Notion templates. If you're familiar with intermediate packets, this kind of concept that Tiago Forte speaks about in Second Brain and stuff, it was really noticing that I had all of these intermediate packets and then just going, okay, wait, that should just be a Notion template. So the build time wasn't that long. The bulk of the launch itself was me building in public and just kind of being on Indie Hackers, saying, hey, this is what I did today, connecting with other people, supporting their work, like sharing some of my mess ups and mistakes. And those were all kind of like driving factors for the build and generating this awareness. I had a really tight group of friends who were all super happy to share as I was going along in the journey. So that was kind of my main marketing strategy, is just like initial network, mainly through Twitter and people retweeting things that I would say. And I initially thought I would launch on Product Hunt, but then I kind of pulled out of that as I thought, wait, I need to build up a bigger audience to make sure that that launch is more successful and does well on the day, etc. I could have just launched on there and it would have got more exposure, but I'm really waiting for it to kind of to reach a larger group. So far, we're at about sort of 60 sales, and the team is kind of, the community around it is building. And so that's kind of the stage we're in now is it's starting to like pick up the pace, and now it's just talking about it and reaching out to more folk who are interested in this kind of intersection of Notion and education.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a super interesting insight into like the whole background, and a lot of that, like, building in public and getting, quick feedback and making sure that the audience is there has definitely been like a common thread around a lot of the conversations around course creation. So that's really cool to kind of get a behind the scenes look into that process. Cool. So if it works for you, it'd be great to like dive into the system and just kind of like walk through what it looks like from the perspective of a course creator, and like what are the main areas, and kind of what that workflow looks like, for somebody creating a course, going from like ideation to launch potentially.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just looking at the polls here and having a check out of like what level everyone's at, just so I kind of frame what to bring to surface more. So it looks like there's a couple folk who, most of you are kind of thinking about building your online course, or you've got a couple of advanced players, and also some basic users. And I hope everyone's kind of familiar with Notion. That would be really cool. But yeah, let's dive into it. So coming back to the screen share. Nice. Can everyone see the thing?
Yeah, it looks like it's sharing the Crowdcast.
Great.
Okay, so it's your browser.
Yeah, just my browser.
All right.
If anyone's wondering why my browser looks a little bit different, I'm using Sidekick. It's a really great browser. Highly recommend it. Uses Chrome as the back, but all of your favorite tools are kind of just on the side there. Notion is obviously right at the top. It's just interacting with it every day. So yeah, here we are. This is the kind of top level of Edu-Creator OS. It's broken down into two sides. Oh, well, let me back up a bit. Edu-Creator OS is basically a kind of all-in-one operating system for consultants, educators, and hobbyists to share their knowledge and their craft online through content, courses, and workshops. So it was really built around those three major content types, but really it's for anyone who's making educational content. The whole product is kind of broken into two sides. There's the creator dashboard and all the creative process underneath it, and the business dashboard, which includes all the operations and management of a business, and then also the guides and toolkits which are included. And they're loads of different guides and toolkits in here for beginners to get to map out who their audience is, what they want to teach them, how they want to share that, and what channels they're going to do that through, what kind of content they're going to share. And there's some more advanced guides on kind of like learning experience design and all the way through to like monetization strategies. So we can dive into those in a minute. And this basically is kind of like a blend between an online course in itself and also the tool. Throughout it, I kind of littered these little embedded videos of me talking about like a certain section and how you would use it, how you could modify it to be your thing. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. So the creative process is these 4 parts. There's the intake, which is kind of like your main capture place. Basically, you want to be taking information in and using the web clipper. So this is kind of your like single point of truth for information that you're ingesting. And at the end of each section, there's kind of an exercise. So here I get you to think about your capture strategies in a capture strategies guide. Capture is all about like bringing information into Notion so you can digest it and mull it over, which you can get into by pressing this button across the bottom. This is kind of the one feature of this template, which everyone seems to like, which is this kind of quick navigation across the bottom of most of the pages. So we can go back to the intake, or we can go forwards to the next thing in the creative process, or just go home. So then the second stage of the creative process is the digestion section. This is all about taking the stuff that you've just brought into Notion and then digesting the knowledge. So changing formats from seeing something to writing about it to drawing about it, and then maybe performing it through a video, and then producing some kind of thing, and then maybe even selling it and productizing it. Inside here, there's a bunch of templates for, where is that? There's digestion session. Do I have edit rights here? Oh, I don't, because I'm in a different workspace.
Quick question: Did you make those graphics?
I did. These are all in Figma.
Yeah, those are great.
Thank you. Yeah, they're all custom in Figma, and yeah, I love Figma. I can talk about that all day. It's a whole other webinar. Here we are. Okay, cool. So this is, sorry, I was on the Edu-Creator as it was when you buy it. So this is now like in my workspace. So if you go into this digestion database, there's a bunch of templates, and this is kind of reflecting what's going on in that image up there, which is, okay, like now you've taken this information, try and change it into a tweet thread, try and change it into a screen recording, change it into a framework diagram using Canva or Figma. And so that's helping you kind of like turn it into your own thing that you could use over and over again in your teaching. Again, there's more exercises here. And then you want to turn those things into kind of like reusable assets. So here's a bunch of assets that I have for it, which I teach from. Let's have a look here. So this is like a Figma diagram, again, of like a teaching framework called Teach to 6. But this has come out of this process of like intaking information, digesting it, and then making it into something which I can share with people, either as content or in my courses. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love the idea of like organizing the visual assets like as their own library, because that makes so much sense in terms of using them for your own content to market the course or like template.
Totally.
And also, within the course itself. So it's just like getting into that, back to that intermediate packet method of, organize it in a particular way that allows you to access it quickly and use it in a lot of different contexts, which is pretty awesome.
100%. Yeah, it's really built around having those kind of small nuggets of knowledge, which you can just pass around into your different channels and products. So yeah, this is just an example of some resources that I use to teach from, and they go into different courses and marketing. And so from that part, from the teaching resources, we're still in the creative process, and then we bring it into projects, which is kind of where the magic starts happening. And if you're familiar with Notion's sort of board views, then the projects area is basically a bunch of board views for the different content pieces and products that I make. So there's a workflow here for workshops. And this is like from idea to draft to rehearsals. Then here's a bunch of ideas that I have in video production. So videos I want to make. I save all the ideas here, and then when they get ready to go and I need to draft and script them, they move across there. So this kind of keeps the team all in step. So once it moves to editing, then I speak to my editor and say, hey, do you want to, all the assets are inside this card. Can you edit this? And then here's some online courses, which I'm working on, and also some idea courses, which are coming up. Same again for essays. This is kind of just where I keep track of all of the different projects which are upcoming and want to be published.
You've got lots of ideas.
Lots of ideas.
And so these are all actually in the same database, or are they individual databases?
Yeah, good point. This is also a good point to stop off on one of these embedded walkthrough things. I'll show you the main database first. So this is the same database, but they all have different stages. The way I did that was by going down here at the bottom of some of the major parts of the template. There's a configure database, which is kind of like the raw view of just everything that's in here. And the way that they're being filtered is by what workflow they're from. So if a certain piece of content has a tag in a certain workflow, then it's going to show up in that workflow. So these are all blog articles, and they only show up in the new essay and article workflow because they've got a tag in there. They don't show up in the new course workflow. So they're actually all in the same database, just with custom views. So that's kind of fun to see all of your content ever in one database, instead of kind of being split across different databases. And yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I tend to like geek out over over anything database related, but okay, cool. The tags. So for example, like video production, like those tags, idea, draft, script. Is there one property of tags, or is there like a video tag property and then a blog post property?
Right. Yeah. No, there's not. That's kind of what I'm saying with depending on what workflow it's in. Determines what kind of content type it is, if it's a video or a blog. So you're not going around saying this is a video, this is an article. You're just saying this is like in this workflow that I'm working on.
Awesome.
Yeah. Two more things on the projects page which are fun. This is the walkthrough video. So it's kind of an example of where I start talking about how to use this and get the most out of it. And these are kind of like littered throughout the template in various locations where I thought, okay, people would need a little bit more guidance here. And it's kind of really sending home this principle that I have around most of my learning design, which is trying to get people to engage with something first and trying it and messing up. And then actually then getting some more support to figure out like, oh, this is how I was meant to use it. I really believe in kind of failing first and trying it yourself and then filling in the gaps of that knowledge. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this littering the stuff around. Instead of building like a Edu-Creator how-to course, I'd rather just give you something where you can play with it and then also receive the guidance you need when you fail.
Yeah, this part, I when I first saw the system, I was just like fascinated by the way that these workspaces have educational content like embedded in the blocks that people are using, whether it's video, whether it's just kind of like quick text descriptions. And it's a great example of like kind of blurring the lines between like what's a template versus a course versus like a workshop. And it kind of feels like we're just seeing so many different new emerging models of learning through these new tools, which is just kind of like such an exciting time for like teachers and course creators in general, but also like using tools like Notion, to kind of like, manifest these new things.
100%. Yeah. I really like the direction that Notion's taking with kind of like breaking out of the static content thing. I really want to try and play with having like a scrolling course where there's kind of interactive pieces as you go down the page, kind of like an interactive essay or textbook. So things like Notion lend themselves to kind of new ways of thinking about education, and it's really exciting. Also in Rome and other tools, there's a whole bunch of new possibilities now. So I'll come back to the thing. The last thing on the products page is basically this, is that there's a bunch of templates in here, so you can quick launch anything. New blog posts, new podcasts, new worksheets, and workshops. I'll show you what a new workshop looks like. So let's say in 2 weeks' time, someone's booked me to do a thing, and they're like, hey, we want you to do a workshop on customer personas or something. Then I can just open one of these up and then have this kind of layout of all the things that I need to think about before a workshop. This has really been generously supported by Toby Sinclair's workshop planning template. So shout out Toby, he's got an amazing workshop planning template. I just Notionified it with his permission, which is basically most of what my life is now, is just putting things into Notion from other places. But everything that we could think of for workshop planning here. So sort of purpose, practicalities, where, whens, participants, the products, like what are we going to produce, what's going to happen after this workshop. Just a bunch of considerations, and these are all like up for you to customize and figure out what specifically you need. So they're just kind of like a starting point for you to think about that. At the top's also like a run of show template. So if you're preparing bigger stuff, then a run of show basically allows you to kind of like sync up with the ground staff about the lighting and the food and all of that, and just sending them that document keeps them all in pace with what your timings are as a workshop facilitator. So that's kind of all in there as one example. And I think the big one, which everybody wants to see, will probably be the online course template, which has been the most well received one so far, I think. So yeah, this is the online course template, and there's a freebie if you want on Edu-Creator OS, but basically we kind of broke it into these three major parts. I left out promote because that's in the marketing section of Edu-Creator OS, but plan, produce, and publish are all here. And do we want to talk about the course creation process right now, David, or should I keep going through the rest of the template? We can circle back around.
I mean, I'm personally curious, like, what's in those toggles? Like, I want to get into the details, but yes, to your point, you know, if we can like dive in here, I'm being super selfish on that one, but you know, I think from there, zooming out and like kind of thinking through a little bit openly on like the course creation process, you know, in general.
Sure. I think I'm going to come to the toggles after hopping to this. We'll kind of work our way around Edu-Creator. So we'll come from the creative side, and then we can start diving into the business and operations side. So you all can see my screen still, right? So do you see this page?
Yes.
Amazing.
Course creation handbook.
Yeah. So yeah, we were just about to go into the online course template, but I wanted to zoom out real quick and kind of give it some more context. There's this new resource which David and I are kind of like co-creating, and I'm hoping to bring some more people in on it. Basically, what I noticed is everyone's trying to sell you the kind of like 7-step formula or the 4-step process or the final course creation thing that you'll never need any other thing else ever. And these are cool. They're really great guidelines. They're super helpful. But what I'm noticing more and more is that, like, as I speak to more like course creator and learning experience designers, everybody's got such a unique flavor of approaching their course designs that I think what's most important right now is actually exposing new course creators to just like a variety of different methods that they can play and experiment with. And actually, it's sometimes helpful not to have like such a clear process, but to have kind of like 3 ways of trying to figure out what your learning outcomes are, or like two different methods for mapping your curriculum, because in doing it in different methods, you actually get way more clarity on it, just because you approach it from different angles. So this handbook is really meant to be like a collection of different methods and practices and models for designing courses. It's got a little bit of an introduction, and then I go into, and this is still a rough sketch, but generally there's these sort of 7 stages of course creation. There's the empathy and getting into the learner's shoes and assessing their prior knowledge. Then there's this determining your course learning goals and transformation, signposting or mapping the modules based on the course's domain of learning. So like if you're teaching a specific domain, then it's going to have a different like structure of modules. Setting up the lessons inside each module, planning each lesson, scripting and building the lesson, and then like grabbing all the different media that you need to overlay on that. So this is kind of like a rough sketch still, and really what I want to do is kind of like pass this around the community. So there's like an empty set of contributors here, and surface different ways that we approach course design, because then hopefully other people can kind of say, well, I tried these ways and I tried those ways and they work better and they didn't work better in these places. So yeah.
Yeah, I think when you kind of brought up this idea a few weeks back, the part that really resonated with me was the limitations of, I also work with younger students and work at the high school level, and the lesson planning criteria and format, it's very, very limiting in terms of, it really only fits one style, and can really kind of hamper, creativity in the classroom and working with students. And I think the starting point of, there are actually a lot of different models, and really understanding what model fits your course, your target audience, even building your own model inspired by a few different ones. It just feels more like a natural process in terms of identifying what is the best solution for your particular course.
Totally. Yeah, I think one way that it's okay just to readily adopt someone's 7-step, 5-step process thing is they feel like that guy is in exactly the same niche as me, and he's basically doing exactly what I do. Most of the time, depending on your style of teaching, depending on the niche you're in and the topic, you're going to approach it in some different way or like modify it in some way. And so, yeah, I think you're right. Like being able to expose course creators to more of these different methods, changes the kind of way we approach this. So it's, those were the kind of major steps. I think, what's an example here? I sort of like stole some of Andrew's stuff from his on deck course creation. That was really cool. So I'm just starting to build like his topics and pillars thing. And there'll just be a bunch of templates in here for people to be like, oh, well, I want to figure out what my learner's prior knowledge is, and then I'll find the template for that. So that's kind of the goal with this, and I want to use that to kind of guide what I'm going to talk about in the online course template. So coming back over to Notion, here we are. The moment you've all been waiting for, online course template.
Toggles.
Toggles. So hidden, so mysterious. Okay, here we are. So I wanted to start things. I generally start projects, and I see most course creators, and the way that I audit groups stuff is just bringing everything into one place. So planning starts kind of with this centralization of stuff, and I wanted this to be a section for brain dumping, inspirations and resources, not overthinking it too much. One model I like to use for this is a framework that I developed with the team from the Learning Sprint, called UFAST, which stands for Unpack, Facts, Analogies, Strategies, and the Test. So kind of thinking in these buckets, like what are things that help me gain a high-level map of this thing I'm about to teach? What are the definitions and propositions that I need to be able to like communicate? What are the analogies and stories and models that I can use to like move people from not knowing to an embodied experience of this thing? What strategies and like actual step-by-steps do I need to communicate? And also, what would it look like if this thing was applied? So brain dump all of that stuff, get that all on the page. Next thing is kind of walking through learners' needs. I suggest that you use the learner empathy map from like lxd.org have this amazing learner empathy map. And this is great for just like looking at your learners' motivations, assessing their prior knowledge and all this stuff. So do one of those or answer these questions. And then kind of then decide on what your course's learning objective is. So here's a really simple framework for that. Given these conditions, students will be able to do this and to do this with this standard. And as demonstrated by, like, what would it look like if they actually could do that? So like an example here is, given a cake recipe, raw ingredients, an oven, and baking utensils, learners will be able to bake a cake that at least, and this is like the standards of achievement, at least 80% of their friends and family eat without coercion and pronounce delicious. So
that's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's a real learning goal. And so this is just like one framework, and I'm not saying you should use this course objective framework. And this is the whole point of why I made this extra handbook, to be like, okay, well, what do I want to use? How can I customize this template to be mine? So once you've got your learning objective, then you kind of want to move on to mapping all of the different concepts and the curriculum. So one thing that's not here, let me move over to an applied example of this so you can get some more context. I'm working on a course right now. It's a mini second brain course in Notion. So all the second brain stuff applied to Notion specifically, so you can get all the best of the second brain practices, leveraging all the amazing tools and features that Notion has. And so here I am in the curriculum mapping. What I basically did was think of the kind of core pillars. So there's this intro, which I needed to do, which is like some pretext. There's some like setup stuff to do with second brain. And then there's these major buckets like capture, organize, distill, and express. So those were like my pillars. And I just spent some time like figuring out what all the core concepts were that I wanted to teach, or like that were necessary to translate, and map those into those different pillars. And that kind of gave me like a module breakdown and overview of my course. So you've gone from this course level thing to now this like module level thing. And we're looking at the module level. I want to try and get each of the different modules that for the modules transformation to go towards the overall course transformation. So everything in this stack is moving towards that final learning goal. So what I'm doing here in module 1 is I'm thinking, okay, cool. Well, what's the transformation going to be? Before, and then on the other side of this arrow is like after. After module 2, what's the transformation going to be? Well, they're going to have like this unpersonalized workspace, and then they're going to have this completely personalized workspace with their projects, areas, and resources. And always just checking in after each of these. I write one of these going like, okay, does that move them closer to the final course level goal? I do this for every module. And then I start actually going into mapping it. And this curriculum overview is kind of it's a living document. The one thing I want to get across to like course creators is, especially new course creators, is that it's not like your course is some magic top-down waterfall, which just pours out perfectly. It's very much like a bottom-up and a wiggle, and then it just changes shapes quite a lot. So this is like a living document. I probably went through like 3 or 4 different iterations of this to get it into the state that it is now. So yeah, don't like stress when things don't line up right. A lot of it is just adapting. And so this is kind of trying to get it into like that rough like learning journey from what the learner doesn't know and where their starting knowledge is to the end place, that learning objective, like where you want to get them to in that transformation. So here I've started to map each of the different lessons, what module they arrive in. So you can see there's a lot on the front end. There's a little bit more in module 2, only 2 lessons in capture, 2 in organize, and a lot more in express as module 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm tracking what type it is. Is it just a talking head? Is there a quiz? Is there a screen share? And again, in here, there's a great template for like a new lesson. So one of those looks like this. It's just templates in more templates. So
all things templates, yes.
Yeah. And yeah, so like when I make a new lesson, I've already got this, and this is again just a rough guide of like lesson planning. So brain dump the outline that you want. What are the learning objectives? Are there, and think about the insights that you want to share. What are the different definitions that you need to share? What can they do before and after the class, and what skills and methods and processes are necessary? So like a big brain dump. Then a little bit on the script, so like hook and some tips on hook writing. Problem, solution, how will you wrap up and transition as just general sort of things. I know some people like the 9 steps of instruction. These are also important and are in the new template, but I haven't got them here. Then a little bit for the write-up. So underneath if you're using Teachable or something, then there's sometimes some text underneath the video. So writing what that looks like for the lesson, and then planning the B-roll. Like, are there any animations? What is this? Animation of a cat with a teacher's hat. When is that going to come in? And kind of writing that down. So that's kind of like the lesson template. And then again, each of the different steps of the process. Is it scripted? Have I got the A-roll? Have I got the exercise scripted? Is it shot? And you can kind of customize these. So it just kind of lets me know, like, overall, how am I doing on this project? Nearly there. Yeah, and that's the kind of curriculum overview. Any questions so far from the community? I've kind of been talking for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. If anybody has any questions or thoughts, go ahead and add them in the question section. I had a question, like, just in terms of, what you've seen now that it's been out for a while, and you have people using it. What does that look like in terms of, are they typically like individuals creating courses or teams? And like, what have you seen so far from like users, and like, what does some of that feedback look like?
Yeah, the 2 things that stand out are, it's mostly been kind of experts in a very niche field who want to share something. So they're kind of already doing some kind of consulting, or they maybe have like an agency, and now they're just trying to roll out some more courses on the side so that they have like, they can scale and like position themselves as an expert in that field. There's people all the way from like Autodesk experts, so people who design like manufacturing parts, using this to roll out their training programs inside an org. There's like solo creators who are like experts in biomedicine, and their thing is to they have a YouTube channel and they want to make content consistently for that YouTube channel. There's some folk who are like health and wellness sort of practitioners, and they are really just trying to do like more mindset coaching and build their kind of content and courses around that. So yeah, it's been dominantly experts in a certain field, also like a lot of coding guys teaching coding, and less so educators, unfortunately. As we both know, it's very difficult to get like a teacher to adopt new tools, but yeah, mainly experts and solopreneurs, but also people inside organizations building their instructional design as well.
Yeah, well, I definitely hear you on the teacher side. That's something that, it's been a little bit uphill, but I think any new technology or platform, does tend to take a while for like mass adoption, especially in a field like education, which is, slightly behind in terms of tech implementation. So, even with the kind of intuitiveness of Notion. So that's, I think it's early, but hopefully growing.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've seen that's been pretty common is this idea of like a lot of people kind of starting courses or coming up with ideas and really struggling to get to the finish line in terms of juggling launch, marketing, growing the audience, while making sure that the actual course content is top notch and is really just clear and specific to the topic. So, like what have you seen in terms of strategies or ways to ensure that people that start a course like have the tools and strategies that they need to like actually launch it?
Yeah, sure. The first thing that comes to mind is again going back to this kind of intermediate packets thing. One thing that I see, some people burn out building their courses just because they're like, oh well, I've got to writing, and I've got to get it edited, now I've got to hire a video crew and blah blah blah. One way you can avoid this quite well is building up to that with all these like micro pieces of content. Some of the best course creators that I've met have generally been people who like fell into their course. They was like, oh, whoops, now I've got too much content. This should be a course. And so this is like one way I'd really encourage like new course creators to think about things. It's not like, oh, damn, like I need to map the whole thing and get that all mapped out. But okay, like how can I break this down? What are the small bits of content that I would release as like a build up to that final thing, so that when it comes around, you're just grabbing all the pieces, figuring out what the learning journey looks like and mapping it a little bit better, tailoring it to that specific learner's needs. So that's one thing I think is really helpful for, especially for new course creators who see this kind of like Herculean task. You've probably just seen that template and been like, holy shit, there's so much stuff to get mapped.
So just kind of starting with like starting with how are you organizing things? How are you structuring resources and ideas in a way that you could quickly refer back to and access later, as a kind of like a healthy starting point to when you do get into like the planning and creation, you have all of the tools and kind of packets that you're leveraging so that it's not kind of starting from zero and moving forward.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, you can totally do that. It's a heavy lift way of doing things, and if you like working like that, sure. But yeah, to avoid the sort of like burnout and the stress of it, like you're right, a lot of people don't actually finish their courses. So yeah, one way you can avoid that is just by micro content first and moving up towards the bigger thing. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else for like geography is intermediate packets. Yes,
I'm just like taking public notes
Gotcha.
so I can refer back to also.
Cool. I'm checking time. We've got like another 15 minutes together. I could wrap up the course stuff and get into the business side of Edu-Creator, or we could open up.
Yeah, I think I think what would be cool to see is what is that like the business side / marketing side look like in terms of you've gotten your course together, or it's almost 100%, and you're starting to get into like what does that marketing process look like?
Sure.
Even though I'm sure it starts in some cases before you start course planning, if it's if you're in an audience building mindset. But yeah, it'd be great to check that out. And while we're doing that, any ideas, comments, questions that all of you have, it'd be definitely great to hear those. Nice.
Yeah, I'll dive into the rest of Edu-Creator then. So curriculum, I'll just wrap this bit up quick. Then I've got the
Can you share your screen?
Oh yeah, sure. Share screen. Nice. Yeah, so just coming after the curriculum stuff, then we've got the produce section. I like to produce all of my assets in Figma. Then there's just this huge list of assets here, which I use as slides in the thing. Go into B-roll, set up the to-dos in the calendar, and then start testing and publishing, and then start re-editing everything. I think that's another thing to leave with course creators, is also like get your stuff out quickly, just so you can kind of get feedback from your learners as quickly as possible. So that's the final bit on the course creation template. So coming back up to the top layer. Yeah, so this is a modified version of the template, because this is the one that I use, but I've ripped everything from here. But moving over to the other side, we have the business dashboard, which is for kind of running the day-to-day of your business. Right at the top, I've got left some widgets for Notion metrics, Notion charts, Google Analytics, so you can kind of embed all of that. Again, another little walkthrough video of like what's going on here and how to get involved with everything. Right under that, task management, quick links to stuff. It's kind of just like a little dashboard for you to get going on the day-to-day. I like to use 3 wins, which is like an agile results method. I know some people like OKRs and all of that stuff, but 3 wins is there, or you can change that to OKRs. Business areas next to key resources. So different business areas for like operations and workflows, products and services, management, learner relationships, marketing, finance, leadership, and team management. And on the right, all the kind of like core documents that you'll need. So stuff like a job scorecard for when I like hire freelancers, a testimonials page where I keep all the testimonials, brand assets, link trackers, also a media kit somewhere. Yeah. So when people reach out, there it is for sponsorships and stuff, that I've got that. Underneath that, then topic areas. So these are kind of like, these are the default ones that come with it. So life hacks, personal knowledge management, they're just like dummy data, but you basically have a different topic area for the different topics that you teach. So mine are kind of like in wisdom and pedagogy, edtech, and this other bucket of like social imaginary. So those are my topic areas. And inside there is just linked databases, which kind of show you what you've got in those different areas, that topic area. So how to teach and learn has got a bunch of linked databases, which only show me the different things in digesting or the different resources that I have, and the projects that are active in that topic area. So that's a cool, quick little dashboard view there. And what's fun? Marketing. As I speak about the marketing piece. So one question that came up when someone bought Edu-Creator, they said, well, okay, should I not be how should I be creating my content alongside all of this? And the big take I have on this is really, as an Edu-Creator, most of your marketing content will be educational content. So it will kind of just be snippets of the stuff that you're already producing as part of you learning and teaching what you do. You can go into this other mode of like making a whole set of different content, but it should kind of just be an extension of the projects and the diagrams and the teaching resources that you're making will feel like your marketing. And that's also you building in public in some way, like moving towards your final course, where you've already like validated a bunch of content and topics and ideas because you've just been tweeting and sharing them on Instagram and you're seeing what works, so that you finally have this huge set of validated information and knowledge that when you come to build your course, you're like, well, I already shared this and I got loads of likes and engagement, so I know it works. Now I just got to put it in a course.
Yeah, I love that because it's I think marketing can feel like a very daunting undertaking, on top of creating an entire course. But just kind of remembering that, if you are creating a course, you have that expertise, and that's what your audience wants to learn more about and wants to, really kind of understand on a deeper level. So sharing, and it goes back to the building in public philosophy of, sharing your expertise through these, through this media or pieces of content that you're at the same time using to build your course, really kind of lightens the load of the marketing and really just shares a kind of a genuine, perspective of where you're at in the process. While also, getting people more curious about your, course launch and just kind of wanting to learn more about it.
Yeah, 100%. Like if you're scared about building your first course, then like kind of treat every social media post as like a little bit snippet of educational content. I think it's one of the easiest ways to kind of produce authentic and meaningful like content and marketing without it feeling too coercive and sticky.
Yeah, I think another big benefit, at least that I've seen, because I wasn't too active on social, like on Twitter and Reddit up until maybe the start of this year. But just by way of sharing, Notion templates that I made, or ways that I'm using databases, ways that I'm trying to use it as an educator, you just kind of meet all of these people from different avenues. That's how you and I met, and just met some amazing people that are also, very willing to like share your work and share the things that you're making and give you feedback. That's kind of one of the unique things about like the Notion community that I've never really seen before, is everybody's just so like unusually positive and collaborative. But that's been really cool, and that's really only possible by building in public, sharing, just being open to that feedback, and really just having the confidence that if you do have that expertise and you can create that course, that there will be that audience for you.
100%. It seems risky at first, but the upsides are so insane. I've met so many wonderful people just by externalizing the process a bit more. So highly recommend it for first-time course creators. And you don't even need to show your face. Like, I think that's kind of like why I try to build in this tone into the text there, that you can animate stuff, you can draw stuff in Figma and still build an audience. You don't have to be like some amazing camera spokesperson who can like stare into the camera perfectly. Just there's so many ways for people to educate now online. So and I've left a bunch of those resources in Edu-Creator, so you can check out the tools then in there.
Awesome. And so I guess to wrap up, like how can people find this? Where can they find you? If any of our audience has any questions. The Edu-Creator is on edu-creator.com, and then you can find me generally on Twitter. I'm Serj Hunt, as it's spelled up there, with an underscore and then ARK. Yeah, I can post some stuff in there. So those are probably the two most common ways to find me. Awesome. Yeah. And like Serj mentioned earlier, we're trying to work on that resource library of just trying to bring in different resources, different strategies, so that course creators can kind of build their own models that fits for your audience and your content. So pretty excited about that. And, also any course creators that are on Twitter, if you follow a Notion teacher, that's kind of where we're doing this public collaboration. Make sure I got that right. To kind of keep in touch and, and keep creating.
100%. Yeah, if anyone wants to contribute to the Course Creator Handbook with your methods and cool things, then super open to that. Just DM me, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, on that note, anybody who's here, we're going to try to have another one of these, EDU course creation specific events sometime in the next couple of weeks. So look out for that. Or, if you'd be interested in joining or collaborating, or know somebody that would be great to, interview or walk through, that's aligned to creating a course or teaching, definitely reach out as well. And, on that note, hope to see you all in the next session, which is hopefully soon, and have a great rest of your day. Serj, any last words?
I look forward to meeting some of you guys. I think there's some really talented folk in here, and curious to see how I can support, or if you guys just want to say hi and hang out for tea.
Awesome. All right. Well, bye everybody. Hope that was helpful, and hopefully see you in the next one.